Exegesis of Revelation, Lecture 14, Part 2, Part B. So Revelation 17, verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. I had looked up in one or two commentaries, well, one, and they attacked this mystery being all capitalized and said it's an obvious error, and a grievous one at that, in the King James Bible. And they went on to try and say why. I was like, I don't understand what they're talking about. Anyways, there's an issue on that, just to let you know. Of course, I firmly believe it's right. Because I start off with believing the whole thing's right, and then you've got to prove it to me that it's wrong. And if someone could do that, I guess I would believe them. But I've yet to find anything that someone's brought up of significance that is an error in the King James Bible, as best I can tell. And I've looked at things. At least there's ways of explaining it. Now, if there was no way to explain it, now that would be a problem. Anyways, forehead, on her forehead, like the seal of Israel and the beast worshippers. The woman is also identified on her forehead, just like them. She has a harlot's forehead and refuses to be ashamed. Shows it right up. The label on her forehead as the mother of harlots is to be contrasted with the engraved golden plate on the turban of the high priest, which read, Holiness to the Lord. Big difference. Look what's written on her forehead. And you can, obviously it's not a real woman here, so it's probably not, I would say not really written on people's foreheads. Would you agree with that? That it's symbolic, or it's like a statement that you just picture this whole system as a woman, it would be across her forehead like that? Mystery, Babylon the Great. The mystery religions of the ancient pagans, stemming from Nimrod and Semiramis. This mysterious form of occult, satanic religions. A mystery being revealed. Who is it? It's Babylon. Ancient Babylon is now the new revived Babylon, or Roman Empire. More than likely it's what's happening here. The satanic core was hidden all these centuries, but now is being revealed. It's like the Roman Catholic Church system revealing all the lies and evils. Or maybe even better, the Mormon Church saying, yes, we do worship Lucifer at the higher ranks. The occult. Who do they really worship? Well, the Catholics really worship Mary. And if they're really doing it the way it's designed by their system, they're worshiping the ancient pagan so-called Mary, Semiramis. Babylon. Where's Babylon? Well, it's in two places, Iraq or New York City, but Iraq. Again, I believe it's much more than just a city. Because if you go to Babylon, Iraq now, you go, what's this? I can take it over myself. It's not too impressive. So a lot of people believe now it's moved to Rome. It started off being Babylon, and maybe it'll go back there again, but right now it's in Rome. Mother of harlots. Church history explains where all the major denominations came from. Rome, the Roman Catholic Church. She gave birth to the Protestant harlots. They're extremely Catholic, but yet a little less abominable than her whorish mother. Most all so-called Christian groups out there have direct roots to Big Mama. Trace them back. Where do they go? Roman Catholic Church, Methodism, and all her spasms. The Reformed churches, including Presbyterianism. And you've got Lutheranism, thank you. Alright, then you've got the Episcopalians, Church of England. What's come out of her. So all those. There's some non-denoms that just come out of nowhere now. I understand that. So it's kind of a new fangled group. Then there's the Baptists that never were with them. Interesting. The ecumenical movement is made up of all these little prostitute Protestant harlots. In general, it's a general statement. Those are the harlots. The abominations of the earth. Where did all these false doctrines come from? Well, Satan, but really got the big growth in popularity with Nimrod. It spread into Ephesus and then Rome, and now even the Muslims formed 600 or so AD, and the cults and the Protestant harlots. They all have her filth in their belief system. Her meaning the great whore, which is well beyond the Roman Catholic Church, because that didn't start until about 350 or so AD. Sister, would you read verse 6?
And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
So we can picture the Roman Catholic Church system here. If you study church history or take her class in it, you understand how she has been. And of course, not every Catholic is this way. It's probably just very few back then that were to this point where they wanted anyone who disagreed with them to be killed, all the heretics. 50 million, more than that actually, but we'll say 50 million saints, the majority of them being Anabaptists or Baptists, were tortured and then murdered by this whore over the past 2 millennia, 1300 years, time period mainly. They lusted after their deaths. They had bloodlust, these heretics. And if you study the Inquisitions and the Crusades in a good historical book document, you see how evil it is. Even in the bad ones, they explain how much they hated the heretics and some things they did to them. But you don't find out all of it until you get a little different history. Try to find Baptist history. There's a lot. Most torture equipment of the past was designed and used by the Roman Catholic Church system. Just the most wicked things you can imagine. Bed of nails, the Iron Maiden. Some wicked things, I believe, were designed for the torture of these heretics, Baptists. Most major wars have been highly influenced and directed by the Roman Catholic Church. Of course, we know this goes back in the Old Testament, where she was killing the prophets and the saints of God. And then John wonders with great admiration here. And you think, why would he admire her? Well, we don't understand the word as well as it should be understood. John couldn't figure out, well, how could this be? Who is she? It's just very mysterious and it's so big and so intense. How could something so wicked and widespread and powerful exist with God here? And, well, it did. It has. The devil's millennium, the Dark Ages, 1,000 years plus, 1,200, 1,300 years of domination of the world, torturing people. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. So, I have trouble identifying this beast. Well, because it sounds like it's 2 here. Because when you say the beast, what do you think of? Yeah. Antichrist, correct. And then it mentions bottomless pit. So who do you think of?
No, Satan.
Satan, yeah. Satan's going to the bottomless pit. No one else is going there. No one else goes to the bottomless pit but Satan. Because, where do the false prophet and Antichrist go? The lake of fire. Satan goes to the bottomless pit. So, and let's read what I wrote here. The Antichrist shall indeed physically die. So that's what it's talking about. He was and it is not. So he was, and he dies and is not. And then we know he comes back again, comes back to life, but then, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. So Satan doesn't, he's been, but he's not. That's got to be talking about the Antichrist. So it's switching here back and forth. They're based, we'll just say they're one and the same, even though we know they're 2 separate entities. That's how I look at it. So the Antichrist dies, comes back to life, and then his power behind him, Satan, will be sent to the bottomless pit. At least this is how I answer this. Be released for a short time of rebellion on earth after 1,007 years there. And then she'll go to the lake of fire forever. Now, the two commentarians I looked at said that this was the Antichrist the whole time. But the bottomless pit thing is, I don't see that. I don't see the Antichrist going to the bottomless pit. All right.
Where did the false prophet come from?
Outer space. No, the false prophet, just like where the Antichrist comes from, just is a man, and comes and is just, I believe, possessed by a devil and joins with the Antichrist and
Okay.
focuses on this what we read about him.
Yeah, I was
And then-
just remembering somebody coming on the scene from the bottomless pit, but I must be
Well, there's a devil, there's a king of the bottomless pit, I believe it's called, Apollyon, Abaddon, an angel, with those locusts.
Yeah, that came out before this.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe
But
that's-
nothing about the Antichrist. So,
Okay.
anyways, that's my little story there. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. There are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Well, what does this sound like here with whoever has wisdom? Like when you're counting the number of the beast, 666? Well, it's similar to that, and very similar to that. Not just that you can have wisdom to figure this out, but they connect here. So, 7 mountains, what do you think of with that? 7 mountains.
Rome.
Yeah, Rome sits on 7 mountains or hills. So a lot of people say, see, this is telling you it's Rome. Who says this here? Is it Tom Stewart on this one? No, Woods. Woods is saying this. Okay, whoever Woods is. It seems odd that the 7 hills should be equated with the well-known topography of Rome, because the identification of the hills calls for, it says here, it calls for special wisdom. Why would such a well-known geographical locale to John's first century audience require special theological and symbolic insight for proper identification? I agree with the man. He who has wisdom, who's very, like counting 666, I mean, who's got that figured out yet? I don't know. And then, she sits on, 7 heads are 7 mountains on which she sits. And half the people in Rome goes, well, that's Rome. And maybe a quarter of the Earth's population, if they studied it out, would say it's Rome. So that doesn't require a great amount of wisdom. I agree with him. This symbolic understanding of the 7 mountains seems buttressed by the fact that the harlot sits on or beside 7 mountains, just as she sits on or beside many waters. Since the waters are symbolic of peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues, consistency seems to dictate that the 7 mountains are symbolic as well. I would agree with the man. It doesn't mean that this isn't like in a secondary application saying it's wrong. So that could have a double truth there. But this makes sense to me what he's saying. The 7 mountains that the woman sits upon are most likely 7 kingdoms, which mountains can refer to in the Bible, and not literal mountains around Rome. Though, again, it could be a secondary truth. This could pull Babylon then away from Rome and out in the wilderness. I don't know how. Well, it definitely gets out in the wilderness from Rome. Alright, so Babel, Egypt, Babylon, Medo-Persia, and Greece are huge, these 5 he's talking about here. This could be these 5 that are fallen. This is in John's perspective at that time. And I'm not a historian at all. So, many of you know way more about history than I do. Well, praise the Lord for you. Alright, so the Roman Empire still is at John's time. It still is there. That old Roman Empire. And the one that comes will probably come to rise at or just before the 7-year tribulation. It'll be just for a short time. The Antichrist, specifically stated, will rise out of this ruling kingdom. It's the 8th, coming out of the 7. In the tribulation to take over, maybe at the halfway point. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, definitely at the halfway point. The revived Rome, the Roman Empire, which seems to be, this is Tom Stewart's here now, it says the revived Rome, which seems to be the European Union, was formed from the older European economic community in those years. through the Treaty on European Union, the Maastricht Treaty, which was enacted on November 1st, 1993. I've not researched that anymore. It's interesting, though. Maybe it is already in place. Study it more if you'd like. Sister, would you read verse 13? And when we get to it. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast.
These have one mind, and shall have their power and strength unto the beast.
Shall give.
Oh, shall give. I'm sorry.
These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. Now, identifying these 10 horns, 10 kings, 7 horns, 7, I get lost on it. And you can go run down those trails and try to figure it out. I don't have the time to try and do that. I read what other men write and go, for now that sounds reasonable. Some of you maybe have free time to go study these for 6, 8, 10 hours. I don't. I'm glad people do. So, nations, where does it say that? It doesn't, but these 10 kings. Okay, nations are all seemingly coming together behind different issues like save the planet, climate control. They also are against nuclear weaponry, and they're pro-homosexuality, gay rights. They want peace in the Middle East, at Israel's expense, of course. The world's kings will eventually all agree upon these type of things. And many other issues, which is happening, and Obama's pushing for it. And will unite together, and they already have united well. But they're going to need a leader. And we can think of a few big nations that haven't united with all of this yet, like huge nation, like China, Russia. They're megalomaniacs, they want to control the world, so some of those aren't going to join up, at least not right yet. They're going to be most notably against Israel. They want peace in the Middle East, but Israel needs to concede until they get peace. And their power will be short, it says 1 hour. And you always wonder about America in the end times. These last, like the tribulation, how do we figure in? If someone like Obama is leading us, and the flavor is going the way it's going right now, where states are voting for and passing, approving gay marriages and the like, well, we could easily be part of this. Well, saving the planet and pro-homosexual rights campaigns and forcing peace in the Middle East be the issues that cause America to join in with one mind with the beast here and give him his power? Who's the most powerful nation on the earth right now? And has been for 60 years, 100 years, wherever. I mean, if you're from another country, tell us. America still is, from what we can see. You may say, well, China against America, how would that work? Well, we don't know yet. I hope we don't have to figure that out. But nation to nation, as far as we know from history, America still is. But we're weakening quickly. This war, most likely, as it talks about this war, will be the Battle of Armageddon, to which the beast and his confederate kings decisively are defeated. Well, that's where they're defeated at, yes. So we got that figured out. The Lamb comes, and he's Lord of Lords, King of Kings. And then, this last part, and they that are with him, who are they? Well, they are called, chosen and faithful. And I wonder if that's cutting it down a little bit of who is coming with him. Is it every saint that was raptured, including the dead in Christ? Or is it just a certain group? Based upon their calling, being chosen, very specifically, these types, they're faithful ones, maybe the bride. And he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, and nations, and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. Sister?
For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his wish, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of God shall be fulfilled.
Go on. Go on.
And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Okay, amen. Every major nation is involved with her. And right now, almost, I guess you could say every major nation is. If you call Iraq a major, or Iran a major nation, you would say no, but I don't call Iran or Iraq a major nation. You got Islam, you got Christian ecumenicism and charismaticism, New Age movement, humanism, you got all these isms and spasms. They got to come together somehow, because this Antichrist is going to take over all religions. The nations that fornicated with her now turn on her, who? The system. You could say it's Rome, it's the Catholic Church system, or the Catholic ecumenical church, and now destroy her. So it wasn't so much Satan turning on her, but, and then it says, verse 17, God has put it in their hearts to do this. So, turning on Satan, turning on this power that Satan has been sitting upon or bringing up. Let's go on here. A lot of the bad things going on in this world, so-called bad, are preordained by God. See, we see all these bad things going on. Oh, what's happening there with Israel? What's happening in this country? Look at our country. Could it be that God is at least allowing it and even saying this must happen according to prophecy? These things are going to happen by my design? God's not the author of evil, though. But don't be so quick to call something evil. War sounds evil, but when Israel was fighting against wicked nations, was that evil? That was God's will. Yes, raping and all that, that's bad. That's evil. It's sin of sin. But I understand war is a little different. Going on, it is God who orchestrates this 10-nation confederacy with the Antichrist. The great whore is wicked, but the beast is wickeder. More wicked. The RCC Ecumenical, even Islamic Union, is not the devil's goal. His goal is for the world to worship him and not be the part or the head of some religious system. Satan can care less about a religious system. He just wants the power, so he understands how to get there. Remember what is happening with our government and the world situation right now, however bleak, might very well be all orchestrated by none other than God himself. Because you can see the mess out there and the economic collapsing, country by country, and even moral bankruptcy and countries attacking others and all this stuff. And you say, well, this is clearly of the devil. Don't be so quick. Sin is not of God, but he can allow it to happen. He can allow a sinful nation to attack another. It can be orchestrated by God. Then it talks about a great city here in verse 18. Again, that's what he had referred to earlier. What great city would that be? Is it talking about a headquarters of the system? I believe it is. But nonetheless, a great city is involved because it says so. Obviously referring initially to Babylon, the city of Babylon, way back when. But today, it's just hard to see that becoming what we read about in the Bible, in Revelation. It doesn't sound like she's going to be rebuilt either. So this city, via its governmental hierarchy, has control over the other nations. Well, Babylon doesn't have control even of its own nation. The RCC even now controls the majority of nations. It has for many years, that's for sure. She's located in Vatican City. So can this city change locations? Maybe so. Rome? What city nowadays could be the new Babylon? That could reign over the kings of the earth? What's the most powerful city in the world? There's a couple up there. But I think clearly, in my view, clearly, if you look at economic control, kind of where military might be somewhat associated with, even maybe religious control, to some degree, would be New York City. Another choice would be London, but London I think is way down the list. Rome, the only reason why we look at that is because the Roman Catholic Church is kind of headquartered right next to Rome, Vatican City. something to research. I find it fascinating to try and figure that out, because if it is New York City, that is right down the street.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite a ways away from where we are, but theoretically, it's not far. All right, God bless you, take a break.